want to introduce you to the team behind this movie, beginning with producer Sheila Hanahan Taylor. Everyone's coming up. Brec Bassinger, I was going to give you each your moment in the spotlight.
We can travel. We travel as a team.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that.
The women of Final Destination.
I'll take that. So, first order of business, Brec is the only one who has any idea what this is for. We're going to try to bring it out of the studio. Every episode of Collider Ladies Night begins with a game called Dicey Questions. I have 8 random questions written down here, and whatever you roll, that's where we're going to start. And this isn't an 8-sided die like my one in the studio, so we'll just see what we can do. But does anyone want to roll it across the stage and see what you get to start? All right, let's go. Just see how it goes. Yeah, go for it. Let's see what happens. Grade 4.
What did it say? You were set up to fail. It's bouncy. It's a very thin apron.
What number is it? 4?
It looks like a 4.
All right. Oh, number 4 is a Sheila question, actually, specifically for you. And I changed this because of our chat earlier. And actually, before I say the question, I will emphasize every single person whose name is in the film credits is of the utmost importance to the finished product. But can you tell us about a Final Destination Bloodlines unsung hero?
Yeah, I can actually. There's 2. Can I name 2? So
I'll take
one is all of the graphics you saw in Iris's book, as well as the murder wall with all the red tape and all the news articles that, if you zoomed in, were all real and accounted for every single person at the Skyview and how they died 20 years later in an oddly similar accident to how they actually died, is a young woman named Winky who was in our art department, and it was her first paid job. And she switched majors and had to prove to her parents that this was the thing, and this is what she did.
Wow.
How cool is that? So for sure her. And then I would say our special effects team, which is Tony Lazarevich and his entire crew, they blew up that house. They told us within an inch where that RV was gonna fall, and it did. So we didn't throw the camera, because we had to insure all the cameras because things were exploding. Things like that. He helped figure out how to, almost kill Richard Harmon with the fan. So he and his team stayed the art. So I would say Winky and our special effects team.
I love those answers. Where do the dice go? Do we want to do one more roll?
No, wait.
Who wants to do the honors?
No, it's Sheila.
Oh yeah, whoever
We can also
Roll it behind.
whoever answered that too.
Sheila, this way.
Oh, we're gonna go over here.
And then
I
it
feel
will
like that's
fall.
how the next Final Destination starts. You throw the die into
It's
the
really
audience.
bouncy.
6. Number 6 is little details. Can you each pinpoint either an Easter egg or a tiny detail in the costume or production design that caught your eye and you really appreciated?
Ooh, I think on a license plate I saw the number 180 in the movie, and I think it said flight as well.
It had FL8.
Yeah, FL8, yeah, and it was 180, and for those of you who know, that's the flight from the first film, which was I think, is that the first Easter egg in the movie? Or did it go
Possibly,
ahead?
yeah,
Yeah.
possibly.
And
that's
there's looking for
props
180 everywhere. Now I know where to find it. Who else has one?
Well, I feel like I'm going to take yours, which is that I can't take yours because now I can't describe it. That truck that you were there's it's a red fish truck.
Yes, that almost hit Richard Harmon, but he lives, right? But they call it, it's called the red fish truck, which would be, ruby fish.
Ruby
and it's
fish.
a red herring. Right? So he almost dies, but he doesn't. That was good. That was the name of the company on the side of the truck. One more I would add, this is our favorite thing. Our production designer, Rachel O'Toole, from the day she interviewed for the job, she was like, circles kill. The Skyview's a circle, the penny's a circle, the fan is a circle, our MRI machine is a circle. So she connected all of the deaths purposefully with her production design.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something that I think is really cool is Dustin, one of our stunt actors, who is one of the men who got set on fire in this one. He was also one of the stunt actors who was set on fire in Flight 180 in the first movie.
He was a teenager on the trip.
This isn't an Easter egg, but at all. It's just details. My Darlene's trailer, her RV, to me is one of the. It's just it was one of those moments when I first came out and saw the RV fully set decked by Rachel and Winky with photos and details, and they have thought through how Darlene lives in this, how she survives, how she eats, what she does with her time. The photos that are glued up everywhere are of you and Teo as children, of my kids as children, and it to me felt like when I first was given the keys and allowed to just go sit in there, I thought, oh, I know who she is. And that was a gift from Rachel and Winky that was just extraordinary.
That's a beautiful answer. All right, let's get into the meat of our conversation now. So on Collider Ladies Night, obviously we love to celebrate women in television and film, but right now I get the opportunity to narrow it down to my favorite genre, horror. Can you each name a final girl or maybe even someone behind the scenes that is a female genre powerhouse, an icon that inspires you?
Ooh, that's a big question.
I think mine's probably Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Did you want me to
We
do that
can
one?
clap for that.
Well, no, okay, I'll say Toni Collette in Hereditary then, because because that is just like an absolutely unhinged performance that like it just I think in horror you always have to go to a 10, and I guess Toni Collette does it really in every genre, she's always going to a 10, but I loved her performance in that.
Excellent example. Who wants to jump in
And then
next?
we just have to finish up Jamie Lee Curtis and
Yeah.
Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Oh, yes.
and one of the best screamers
In the world.
Right.
In the world, I think.
Yeah, she's a true badass.
Yeah. I think another one that I'm thinking of is Winona Ryder. I mean, I love the edginess that she brings to everything, and she's done that forever, and that's something that I've seen and been like, I want to be that. I want to be that.
Makes every role uniquely her own.
I think I'm super completely biased, but I got the opportunity to work alongside Ali Larder, who is Final Destination royalty. And I had an audition for the project when I was working with her, but just to like see her presence on set and the way she advocated for herself and her work was really inspiring. So now getting to follow in her footsteps, in a sense, is a big fan of her on and off screen.
I love it.
And I'm
Sheila,
going to
yeah,
age
right.
myself, but honestly, one of my most vivid memories from years and years ago is Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Like in Aliens, I mean, I just can't not, right? So, and to this day, like, she still is so regal and just holds.
That was one of the first times a woman played a part like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely,
Like,
that's why, like, to
even
me-
seeing it, I think I had watched Aliens in like 2023 or something, or yeah, really, really recently, and I was like, this is so badass. It still is
And then
feels
imagine
revolutionary.
what that did back then,
Ugh.
right? Yeah, so.
All powerhouses. I love those answers. All right, digging into this franchise now. Sheila, I'm going to start with you because you've been with Final Destination for a very, very long time. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these details here, but the first credit I saw was Final Destination 2. You were an associate producer, right?
Yes, I mean, I was working on the first one, but I worked for Craig Perry then. He was not my business partner, so I was his development executive. So I was there for every minute of it, but I didn't get a credit because you know how the studios work. So I took a little bit to elbow in. So,
Well, in
yeah.
that case,
Yes.
let's screw all that. For the first Final Destination movie, is there anything you all did making that movie that made you think at the time, like, my God, this is the coolest thing, and I need to have more of this in my life?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things to me that was so fascinating, even just back then, was the way we were casting that movie. So just starting from the beginning, the conversations we were having around like who the studio envisioned should be in that movie versus who we felt should be in the movie. Because one of the things that Morgan and Wong were bringing to the table was this level of groundedness that I think really sort of firmly has established itself in every version of this, right? So we didn't want to go for like those sexy, splashy teen magazine kids. We wanted people who, when you saw a death, it really could have been you. And the minute somebody's super famous in these movies, it takes you right out. So I think just the strategy before they rolled 1 inch of film was really specific and really smart.
I love it.
Yeah.
Casting instinct spot on since the very beginning and still to this day.
Yeah.
I got one follow-up question about that. What is something that you were able to do in Final Destination Bloodlines that would make 2000 you first releasing that first movie go like, my God, I never could imagine I'd be able to do that with the Final destination franchise one day?
Wow, I would have to think about that for a half second, because some of the things we did in this one, we lucked out. I mean, one of the craziest things is, even though there was a strike and there was a lot of, ups and downs for the entire industry, we were one of the few groups who had a finished script, so we were able to be sort of getting into things more than ever. But it meant that a lot of other people were not shooting in Canada. It was basically us and Tron and a couple indie movies, and that was it. So our entire department in every category was full of geniuses. Like, we got the best crew we would have ever gotten ever in the history of ever. So I would argue that, like, the 2000 Me, we had a great crew on all of these movies, but to be with the level of people we were with on this one was the game changer.
I love that so much, and you see it in the finished product big time.
Can I just say something about casting for a second? Because I feel like it's really important to say to you while you're sitting here with us,
Okay.
that you and Craig, yes, with Adam and Zach as well, but you guys are the producers. This is your baby for 6 now.
Yeah, 28 years.
And
This is the 25th anniversary, but we've been working on it for 28 years.
yeah, that's incredible. And casting is really complicated. And finding chemistry amongst a cast is a complete crapshoot. Like, you can think and hope and feel and wish that it turns out some ways, and sometimes it seems like everybody should get along great and don't. And I just want to acknowledge that the cast on this had such incredible chemistry from the first time we all met. We are an eclectic, mixed group of where we come from, who we are, and it was really a gift to all of us, and I think you can see it on stage. Like, I think it makes a difference. I mean, on the screen, I think it makes a difference. So thank you to you guys.
I'll follow up on that briefly, because I do think it is of the utmost importance to cast this movie with, like, the pitch perfect ensemble to play a family that I believe in their dynamic and their connections to one another. So I guess specifically for the three of you, do you remember the very first moment, either in prep or on set, when you looked around at the rest of the ensemble and you're like, yes, we are the perfect people to play this family?
It kind of felt instant for me. Like, once we hit rehearsals that day, I think in our rehearsals we got like a section of just we had rehearsals at the beginning of the shoot, so which is something that you never really see.
cannot wait to
Yes.
We don't
get to rehearse
To preface this, nobody ever gets rehearsal, and to be given that, like, especially in a family setting, is so iconic, because you get to meet these people before you have to work with them. And I think that really set the tone for the whole thing, because we are really just like a big bunch of 10 weirdos.
Yeah. I was like, this is like my dream group of misfits. Like, after I met everyone, I was like, the most important thing I want in a person is a sense of humor, and everybody on the set had such a good sense of humor, and that was, I think, what helped my relationship with Owen and Richard, is like, right away they felt like my brothers. Like, I was like, oh, okay, they can take any shit I'm gonna give them. Like, this is exactly the relationship that I have with my brothers. And then, yeah, after 2 rehearsals with you, I was like, cousins, I get it. You know what I mean? I get this. I get it, the dynamic exactly.
And it's a generous group. I mean, everybody's really happy to give, take, make sure someone else is, stepping back so that you can have this, or, figuring out what we all need
Owen
from each
made
other.
a really nice point today where he was just like, I think all of us were so excited to be working on the movie. It's the biggest thing that we've ever done, and it was just so egoless, and so it made everyone kind of, super equal footing. Didn't really feel,
I'm gonna go back to the rehearsal of it all now. So I'm obsessed with the fact that this is a big studio horror movie that budgeted the time to let the cast not only rehearse, but I also heard that there were improv takes, and you were telling me about silent takes today, which I'm fascinated by. Can the 4 of you each pinpoint something about a tough scene that you managed to crack, only because they carved out the time to let you do those types of things?
I think probably the car scene between Teo and I. We worked on that for a solid while, just in rehearsal, I think, if I remember that correctly. And I think, sometimes you can overcomplicate just like everyday conversation when it comes to script, because you think it has to be like God's gift of words to the cinema. But I think once we got in there and me and Teo were just like chatting, it was like, oh, it can be simple, and then it became a version of that, and then once we got to camera, it became a version of that, and it was just like playing, So that was something that I felt really proud of.
For me, it's that opening scene when Stephanie first comes to the house, because that is the scene where you have to
feel the relationships right away. You know what I mean? Kind of sets the tone for the movie. And so I felt like in rehearsals, we ran that scene quite a bit. We did all kinds of different takes with it. And that, I was just sort of watching and interacting with a different person each rehearsal, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, I understand who Bobby is to Julia. I understand who Stephanie is to Julia. It was just so helpful.
I would say for me, it was the scene that you and I have when we're driving that had been rewritten from something else and turned into that, and I was really struggling with how much Darlene would say, how much you knew, what time we had, and we rehearsed and talked, and Sheila recorded improv rehearsals and sent them to the writer, and then you and I would, like for the next, because that scene, then I don't think we filmed it for a couple weeks, so I would then go and start working and writing stuff, sharing them with you, sending it to Sheila, who would send it. I mean, we were working on that scene on paper until the week before we filmed it, which was, you just don't get to do that.
No, you don't. I'm gonna follow up on that in a minute too. Brec, can you give us an example?
I think for me, the moment that Iris admits to expecting, all of the craziness, the fire and the action, obviously that takes a lot of time, so I had a good amount of time to really think about those moments, but that scene is much simpler, so we don't have as much time for that, so those rehearsals of like really building depth there and what it would be like to be an unwed woman in the 1960s who's pregnant. What does that look like? What does that mean for Iris? What would her anxiety be? And I think those rehearsals really allowed for me to get into the depth of that.
Sheila, what's up with this? Like, why don't more films carve out the time to do stuff like this? Is there something you would recommend to other producers?
It's wildly tricky because everybody wants the director's attention, right? Props needs them, camera needs them, they need to be doing shot lists, wardrobe's gotta have checks and everything. So to figure out how our directors could carve out like 3-4 hours a day for 7 or 8 days to meet with everybody was just a pure, brain trust of like the first AD and scheduling and our directors being confident enough to like walk away from our department for that time to be able to come and hang out with you. And then I was in the room too because as they were saying, there was so much beautiful things happening, but we needed to get it to our writers, to get our writers to turn it into the screenplay version. So it was all about discovering what they found. So it was like all hands on deck, honestly. But I believe that if a director wants it, we can figure it out.
You got the best directors here. I said it to a couple of you today. This is one of my favorite film franchises of all time. When you announce a new one, part of me gets a little nervous. I trust you and Craig quite a bit. But when I heard you got Adam and Zach of all people to spearhead this, I'm like, oh, I can rest easy. This is the ideal team to make another Final Destination movie. Kaitlyn, I got a big question for you. And you kind of did just touch on this a little bit with that conversation in the car with Tio. So it's the scene where you are essentially explaining Bloodlines and Death's Design to the family. Exposition is so hard. What is the key to delivering all of that information in a way that is clearly conveying the details, but also feels like it has energy, and I could feel like the authority and the urgency, I guess, with which he's delivering it?
Well, I'm so glad you said that because I'm still trying to figure out how to do that.
Oh, you're so good at it.
That was my hardest day.
I was just gonna say, I feel like the whole movie, that was the hardest day.
Yeah.
I feel like all of us as actors even were like, oh yeah, we know, exposition.
It was so wordy and so mouthy, but just remembering key points that had to, that you had to say. There's a whole, then sometimes I would get notes being like, don't forget to say this, don't forget to say that. But, having this group of wonderful people looking back at you being like, what are you saying? You kind of forget that you're acting in it. So I just really had to focus on words. Because, when people are staring at you, like you have 4 heads, it's not really hard to be like, why are they looking at me like that, So it was, that part was, that was also the first day that John Watts came to set. And I found out halfway through and I was like, oh God. Yeah.
Because he knew it was going to be a tough day. He was like, we're here for support.
Owen listed that today as his toughest day.
Oh, what?
There's a real reason why. There's 2 things to add to this, truly. so the other thing that Kaitlyn as a rock star is because we had to cover so many people sitting in that room, you had to do that speech 30
Yeah, I did it like a million times, and I did my coverage last. So
Yeah.
I think I had rehearsed enough to know what I was saying and make my mistakes for other people's coverage.
But it is a fun. But if you look at the math of this movie, we created the Bobby character, Owen. He's our naysayer, but like the sweet, charming naysayer, but he's the one who busts up every one of these moments. So in that one, he has to be like, so we're on Death's Hit List.
Yeah.
And later, during the whole Jerry Fenbury thing, he's like, I hate to bring it back to death, but
Yeah.
so we created it, so it's really hard for Owen, because he has to bring the whole thing back to reality.
Yeah.
So it's actually weirdly hard.
You know what?
Yeah, you're right. Let me take that back.
No, but you have all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
I mean, she did an unbelievable job. Right? You guide not only us, but you guys.
Thank you.
You have to do the job for everybody and explain and map out and tell us what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of neurotic in real life, so it just felt like, yeah, you know, it's just me.
Sincerely, I asked that question because you crush it, and I know that's a very difficult thing to do as an actor. Rhea, there's one thing that I really wanted to ask you that was a follow-up to something Craig told me today. He told me that originally in the script, Darlene was Steph's father.
It's Dale.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can I? No, go for it. I was just wondering if I could get your take on maybe why
Why I decided to play her as a woman?
Not that, but why a mother-daughter relationship in that respect serves the overall story even better.
I mean, that is a loaded question, so I will be as politic as I can. I mean, there was always Iris, and the lines from mother to son to daughter aren't as straight as mother to daughter to daughter. I mean, there's just genetic bloodlines between women that are undeniable and that are complicated and that are layered and that, you know, we all joke in those moments that you realize you said something and you go, oh my God, I'm becoming my mother, which is a blessing and a curse, right? We try to do better than our mothers, not in any offense to them, but we also carry their hopes, wishes, dreams, who they are. We carry family trauma that they inherited. I mean, it's a really straight line. And I mean no offense to fathers and to men, but I think women are the powerhouses and do the heavy lifting. I apologize.
Seeing the
I believe
matriarchs rise to the top in this movie, it's powerful, but in addition, I think it's a brilliant way to explore like just grounded family bloodlines and what children inherit from their parents. Like we're doing it through a high concept horror movie. That's really something exceptional.
But it's there in a high, in a.
I've been saying all day, like this movie it walks a tightrope, you know, between the drama and the humor of it, and it's something that like that balance can so easily tip one way. And even as actors, you know, we were all kind of like, was that too funny? Was it not serious enough? Like how should this work? And I think that is just a testament to everyone that like it was so balanced. You know what I mean? It's you guys, it's you, it's the directors. Like it's really tricky. It's tricky, but I think that we made a funny horror movie with a lot of heart, which I like.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of work
surprising
to
depth.
put together. Yeah.
You did indeed. You should be very proud of that. But we haven't talked all that much about the blood and gore of it, which everyone out there knows that I love. All right, Sheila, I'm going to start with you with a big, broad question. Of all of the big set pieces in this movie, which did you think was going to be the most ambitious for you all going into production, and ultimately was that the toughest of the bunch?
Well, they're all really tough, to be quite fair. I mean, it's a whole game of between special effects and stunts and the AD department and our actors and the camera. I mean, no department is left alone because we kill people with props. Like everybody has to be fully communicating at a level that I'm not used to on other movies. I mean, truly, you can't fake it. You can't have like a rogue department doing their own thing. So just in general, they're all really complicated. I would say, honestly, one of the ones that was weirdly tricky, but I think pulled it off, was the MRI sequence. Yeah. And that was, there were so many conversations because of how the what we call the diving board comes out, and a lot of MRI machines have like a leg to it, but we couldn't have the leg to it because it needed to suck in. We needed to clear the space because we visualized at the end Bobby to be up against it, and we needed to see Richard hanging out of it, and if there was like a leg thing, it doesn't have any of that deliciousness. So to mastermind all of that, again, art department, set design, special effects, camera, everything. So
Richard reminded me today about how his shirt was at one point sewn to his stunt double's pants.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had two people in there. That's the best part. Is we had a cool dolly that our stuntman, who is the real stuntman for Richard and everything, his legs were sticking out, so that Richard's chest could be sticking out.
Yeah.
And his shirt was.
It's one of the ones that looked as gross shooting it on the day as it does in
Yeah,
real
like you're
life.
just looking at it, like how does that look?
literally
right?
looked like someone was
it's
being
super
bent
bizarre.
backwards.
So I didn't see the MRI, but honestly, they're all a labor of love.
Yeah, I like to say my dad fed families. My dad had people working for months. I mean, like, my dad, so it was an
Also,
economy.
her face was involved. Like how risky is this? This beautiful actress decides she's okay with them smushing her face for real on camera, right? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I am really brave, you're right. but truly, it was like, it started months and months ahead of time. Like, I went and got a scan of my whole head, and they had to do a cast of my arm, and then they had to paint all my identical mold. Like, I was talking today, and I was like, when I was wearing the fake arm, like, if I was looking at it, my brain would forget it was fake, because it looked so much like my real arm. And that was, like, before we even get to set, And then I get to set, and they built this. Tony Lazarowicz, who Sheila mentioned earlier, has built this. The interior of the garbage truck had this amazing contraption that on the day when we were shooting it looked like my head was getting cut in half. I mean, the way they had made it, I can never describe it. I'm like, I need a PowerPoint.
You know, it's like Sharper Image or Hemmick or Summer that you put your hand in and the pins all take the shape of your hand. They made a giant one that was the wall.
It was a bunch of
the thing
pins
to come at her, and then it
that would come at my face
close
and then
around your nose.
Yeah, it was insane. It was an insane contraption. And the first day I was like, this is what we're doing? Is this our final piece? It was really wild. And then I'm also like stepping on trash bags the whole time. So it was like doing like a Stairmaster for like 8 hours. And I was like, and they put like wet oatmeal in there and like all kinds of like, like there's like there's diapers, there's all kinds of stuff.
I kept thinking you were gonna get snagged in the eye by that thing, so
I'm glad you're just telling me that now.
Yeah, no. I feel like
But that contraption did have me feeling Final Destination.
Yeah.
Like that contraption, I was like, a lot of things that could go wrong.
I have to say though, I do remember there was one take, and I think it's the one that we used, where you like cried one single tear as it was coming up.
It's real.
What an actress!
It's not CG. It's all real. When you watch it again, because you're going to watch it again.
Yes.
You'll see the tears.
Just a little tear dropped down.
I think that the hardest thing about it was that because I had the fake arm, I was like tethered to 2 special effects people. Like there was one in front of me holding like a tube and a little thing, and like someone behind me like holding me up. And so like they call action, and I'm like, oh yeah, and do acting. Like, because there's so many other things that I was thinking about. Like, it's really hard. It's technical. It can be really tricky.
Oh, I'm gonna follow up on that with you, Brec, because your sequence has so many different little pieces to it. Of the bunch, which was the most difficult to nail all of the choreography, but also act in that respect. Make sure that we could feel the emotion and also like the determination she has to help as many people as she can.
Yeah. I think you know my answer, Perry. I do. That's why she asked it. There's a very quick moment where anytime real fire was involved, naturally the stakes just went up because there were actually real people being set on fire, and the whole fire department was there, and there was real risk. And there's a particular shot, and you blink, you missed it, but I see it every single time. I have to duck behind a bar, and it's Mr. Dustin, who's also in the first Final Destination. He's on fire, and they blow fire at him. And at the same time, we had shot stuff where I didn't have a headband, and then I had a headband, so we had to create a moment where I knocked the headband off naturally, and they're like, this is the moment. I'm like, oh, when someone's on fire, this is the moment we want to do it. And you have to duck perfectly because we're blasting fire in your direction. Like, what if I duck at the wrong time? They're like, don't duck at the wrong time. Also, it has to look natural because we can only do 1 or 2 takes. And I'm like, Oh, great. So there was so much adrenaline. It's so technical. I felt a lot of pressure because I didn't want Mr. Dustin to have to get set on fire again. I don't think it was comfortable. And I was genuinely so scared. Like, poor Adam and Zach, like, I felt like they were these father figures on set for me. They're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like acting when it came to the fear, but then the technicality of it, I had to be so present. And I was really proud of it. I think we only did one take, and I was really proud of it.
She nailed it.
And I didn't get set on fire.
Yeah. So proud of that and the whole sequence. I do have one follow-up question, and I've thought about it with literally every single Final Destination movie, because like, if the person who has the premonition doesn't act on it and doesn't take the initiative to try to stop, like, there's no movie. What do you think it is about Iris that makes her the kind of person who would see that, believe it, and try to stop it?
Well, clearly she's a strong woman. If, like, in the 60s, trying to figure out how to have a baby, wants to tell her soon-to-be fiance, like, she's a strong woman. And I think you can see that as they play their strong woman roles. Like you said, it's a linear line that the mother is the mother. So I'd like to believe she was a really strong woman, and that's why she saved a bunch of lives, kind of.
Fearless.
Yeah.
She didn't care what anybody else thought.
Yeah.
There's power in that.
You feel it in every single second of that sequence. I mean that sincerely. Rhea, let's go back to the big explosion. Can you kind of walk us through the reality of filming something like that from your perspective? Were you on set when the actual explosion happened? And then can you walk us through maybe the prosthetics and makeup work that's required after the fact?
Yeah, am I allowed to talk about
for it.
reshoots?
Yeah.
It's
Additional
not bad.
photography,
It's not
additional
bad.
photography.
No, I just there are rules. And I'm not good at
There's
following
no
them.
rules
so-
on ladies' night.
What if she was like, no? Were you just going to be like, and we
Okay,
we
then,
all
so never
want-
mind, we'll skip over that. So initially, Darlene died when we left the hospital. So I come together, right, the three of us, my kids and I come together in the hospital and we leave. I get stuck in the revolving door and then walk out, and within, 2 steps, like you, there was no fire, but I had 2 steps to hit a tape mark, turn around, say one line, and on the right, halfway through one word, turn this way, and a giant blood bag drops because it was going to be the giant L at the top of hospital that came down and smashed Darlene.
And it then shook it loose when the MRI started doing things, right? So she took the L. But it was too glam, it was too silly, and it wasn't worthy of who Darlene was, we decided.
Yeah, so Darlene gets to come, she gets an appropriate, fantastic death for her kids. So we came back later I wasn't at the explosion. When you guys filmed that explosion, this was 4 months later. So I had now seen footage of it, but I wasn't there. I wasn't in any of that. So we reshot all of the camper stuff, all of the pull-up, but none of that had been on the day at the location with the explosion. So clearly, so we shoot pre-explosion and then post. So I show up and we have this unbelievable crack team of special effects who did the Shogun special effects, and I spent an entire day with them doing tests with, burn and singe and skin pieces laid on, and hair and the whole thing. It was really horrifying and
Special
gory.
effects artists have a crazy job, by the way. Like, they have to sit there and Google that. Like, I've been electrocuted. I'm like, how do you know what an electrocuted person looks like? And we have to go look it up. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's incredible.
A special kind of stomach for that job.
yeah.
You also need a special kind of stomach to do a drowning scene.
Oh.
And I heard a little bit today about the extensive breath work you have to do for something like that.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about maybe the prep work that you did and anything that surprised you about what it takes to actually film something like that?
Yeah, so there was a lot of care going into it. I felt actually quite comfortable. I mean, that's kind of crazy to say, but I did a day with doing some free diving training. And there was like a portion of it that was just kind of like training on like holding your breath.
And I can hold my breath for 2 minutes. I could probably go. Doesn't Kate Winslet like have like
6 or something.
6 or something?
Yeah, she beat Tom
I'm gonna
Cruise.
get there. I'm gonna get there one day. I need another job pretending to drown. Or
We
just
can
work on
get
the
you
next
there.
Avatar.
I think we should train. I can get you there by probably November.
You could. You there's a will, there's a way. So I did some freediving training. We did some breath holding work. And then we got there on I think we had one day just to kind of like feel it out. But it's like so different to like just being in a pool with a bathing suit because you have like all these clothes on, but the clothes kind of make you float. So I was also being weighted down by weight belts, like by other weights in my pockets, like in my shoes. Like it was just like heavy. It was a really, really hard day. I don't think I've ever done anything like that in my life. And also working with like the seat belt as well. I mean, I remember we were struggling with that seat belt too because it kept coming undone.
Yes.
So I had to like fake it.
The last thing you want, right?
Yeah, I
It's like
know,
a
of course.
30,000-gallon tank with 8 people also all weighted down and filming.
Yeah.
They waited there's a special underwater crew up in Vancouver who are amazing. They're called the
Yes.
Sea Nymphs.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there like 5 feet away from you,
Yeah.
but it's still really scary.
Yeah, it was still really scary. I mean, I think there was like a contraption that just dumped water onto
Yes.
you. So like,
Yes.
whether I was ready to go or not, it was just happening, and I would just dunk my head underneath the water, and I couldn't see for like the next 2 days after from all like the chlorine. But it was honestly so fun. Like, when do you get to do stuff like that? I think that's what's so nice about horror movies is that you get kind of like pushed to the limits of what you're capable of doing. So it's like, I mean, whether you're screaming, like even with screaming, it feels like kind of therapeutic because you can't go outside in real life and just scream. I mean, you can, but no one really does that. So, but like to be able to be given a place to do stuff like that, it kind of just like really shows you what you can do.
That tees up the question I wanted to end on quite perfectly. Recently, I was having a conversation with another horror director who made a point to emphasize how happy it made him to see his cast and crew be so happy on his set and take such pride in their work. So can you each single out the day of making Final Destination Bloodlines that brought you the most joy as an artist, as actors and a producer?
Oh, wow. Am I supposed to start?
Anyone who wants to, go for it.
This is tricky. I don't know actually because we were stopped because of the strike for so long. The fact that we were able to get it back up 7 months later and get everybody back, right? It was like a miracle. So to truly, honestly, this sounds so sort of cheesy, but every single day we were like, we're making this movie. This is amazing, and it's Final Destination. Like we're back. So for me, it was more on the daily. I would argue, as we're sitting in Video Village watching something, we're like, it's real. It's happening. So that was us.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I think for me, probably one of the days we were filming on the Skyview tilted set, which is after it breaks in half and they had a literal 45-degree set where you had to be in wires to even be filming on that. And I remember like the grandiose of the set and all the stunt teams and just like looking around. And what kind of going off what you were saying about with horror films, you get to really push the limits. And I feel like I'm a pretty big dreamer, but it was that day in specific when I looked around, I was like, oh, I dreamed big, but I never thought I would get to be doing something this big.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I add one more thing about the tilted set, because I think it's really cool. So we all have learned, like stunt people, when they go through windows, it's usually like sugar glass, right? Like we've all heard that stuff. So what we learned was in order to have people hanging on that glass, waiting for that piano to come, we couldn't use sugar glass. They would have all broken through. So that's all actual real glass. And we had 19 stunt people who, I think it was 19, who were down with that.
Not just down, like excited.
Yeah,
Proud to
yeah.
do it.
And some of them were held on wires like 1.5 feet above it so that they would have the true smash through. And then we do the stunt safety meeting that you have on an important day like that. And generally the speech is like, okay, so if anyone needs anything, the hospital's over here, and this is what you do. This was like, there's gonna be some blood, and there's gonna be glass everywhere, and it's gonna take a little minute. Like, it was a very different experience. And then we watched all these people fly through the glass and land on mats. And that was bananas, right? It was a crazy day.
Stunt people are gonna do crazy
It was
special effects.
Yeah. And Megan was the one who gets hit by the piano. On that, she got a huge real cut, like a legit cut, headed to the hospital with her stuntman husband.
Showed up the next day on set, ready to go. She's like, let's do it again.
She's like, I need to get killed on a piano. Like, you're not replacing me. Yeah, it was amazing. And that's a stunt person. Like, they're all a special breed. So anyway, I interrupted that. It was so amazing.
I think for me it was the last day of filming for the family. We did the barbecue and I think the last day of that was like all of the family's last day, and I went up to Kaitlyn sometime towards the end of that filming and I was like, can I use your hotspot? I want to download that Green Day song that's like, I hope you had the time of your life. and I was like, well, I don't know, maybe that's stupid. And she was like, no, here's my hotspot, do it. And then I like went around and just would play it to like different people, and I was just like, man, I'm really gonna miss this place. And then I would play on the thing and make Kaitlyn go around filming me. But the thing that I loved about it was like, you were just like, no, we have to do that. Here's my hotspot. Like, it just, we had so much fun, and I love working with you guys so much. I've been saying that I wish it was a TV show, because I would work with these people for 10 years. So it's the worst thing about your movies is that you can never do another one.
I know, we can't get you back.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
I second that, just the general sense. I know there were days where we would drive home from set and say, we made a good scene today. Like, we did it. We did good work. But it's just magical when you get to work with a cast like that, and you all show up on set, and you all give and take egolessly, generously. That's a joy.
Oh, okay, we're all gonna cry on Ladies' Night?
Yeah.
I'm down.
I always forget to bring tissues. I never learned my lesson with this stuff.
Well, you're like, oh, it's the cast of Final Destination Bloodlines.
There will be no tears.
This franchise means everything to me. I've cried tears of joy watching these movies more times than I can count. Do you want to take us home with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I love all of the Family Day stuff, but I think one of the days I'll never forget, it was one of our last days shooting. We were in the mountains. I mean, this is also Vancouver, which is my home. So getting to shoot all of this stuff like low-key in my backyard was so much fun, and I have like a really big connection to all of that. But it was on one of our last days. It was the explosion. It wasn't the explosion day, maybe it was, but it was the scene where, Teo's character, Charlie, revives me. And there's like this beautiful fire of a house, like blaring in the background, and we wake up and we say, we fucking did it. I'm sorry for swearing, but we did it. And it was the end of shooting, and I was like, wow, we really did do that. We really all did that. And the fire, and it felt so romantic. But yeah, I think that was one of the most beautiful days I've ever lived. So yeah, you guys really did it.
I'm just so happy to have another Final Destination movie that I absolutely adore. Congratulations.